Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to do a book review. It's a book called The First Paul, Reclaiming the Radical Visionary Behind the Church's Conservative Icon. And yes, this is, I thought it was a really good book. I mean, I've been exposed to a lot of the ideas by the authors Marcus Borg and Dominic Crossan. I mean, I've read some of their stuff already. The Power of Parable by Dominic Crossan and Evolution of the Word by Marcus Borg. I've seen some of the commentaries and things they've done, and I mean, both of them have become fairly popular amongst progressive Christians, and Dominic Crossan also in the academic area has been labeled by some as the best New Testament scholar so far, or today. And I'm going to comment that I think it might be an accurate statement. I mean, there's some pretty good scholars, so I don't know. But I mean, together they work really well. They both have a lot of similar ideas. They complement each other very well. And Marcus Borg has a very heavy Protestant background, and Dominic Crossan has a very heavy Catholic background. I mean, he was going to be a priest, but I mean, or not a priest, a monk. Anyway, on with the book. And part of it is they first talk about sort of the ideas that the way people have interpreted Paul's letters. They talk about, obviously, which letters of Paul were authentic and which ones were forged, or pseudonyms, or were pseudo-Paul. I mean, forged, might as well say forged. Written in his name, whatever. But they talk about a lot of the sort of the things that Paul probably meant by looking at historical context and such. And one of the things they first point out is that his letters were private letters written to certain groups of people. When we're reading his letters, we're pretty much reading someone's mail, someone else's mail. So, one of the big things that they pointed out in one of the chapters is much of the language Paul uses about Jesus was language that people had been using for years about Caesar. Things like Lord and all that. And basically Paul was sort of doing this sort of as a response to the Roman oppression of the Jewish people and such. And things like Paul's emphasis on Jesus' crucifixion. His emphasis on that over anything else. The cross. I mean, that was a punishment reserved for people who were rebellious against the Roman government. And so sort of the meaning behind sort of his crucifixion was not simply he died, but simply he was killed by the oppressive Roman government. And a lot of that. And I mean, there are definitely a few things of Paul that are a bit discomforting. One of the comments that they've made is that also in things like, there's sort of later on we have writings of Paul that are more in favor of slavery. Things like one of the first forgers or pseudo-Pauls had this: masters, be gentler and kinder to your servants, servants obey your masters. Then afterwards it's like, masters, be the latest pseudo-Paul, the one who wrote 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. basically was very authoritative. It's like, servants, you need to be authoritative, or masters, you need to be authoritative over your servants, or your slaves, basically. Yeah. But I mean, one of Paul's letters, that in one of the chapters they get into a lot of detail about, because it was his shortest letter, so they were able to really use that as an example on how they analyzed his letters. He's asking for someone to let one of their slaves, go free. The epistle to Philemon. So I mean, overall, I recommend this book. And one of the things that is really nice to see is the idea that Paul didn't corrupt Jesus' message. He was one of the people who sort of continued it. I mean, it's commented that people who actually knew Jesus had disagreements with him, obviously. Certain things I've read a lot about. I've read both perspectives that I've read several perspectives on him, but this is the only book so far that I've really read about Paul. And I mean, it definitely recommend it. I mean, and of course, definitely he was a writer within his time frame, but I think, wow, definitely gives me a different perspective on him, and one that I had been exposed to and read a bit on, but it's nice to have it all together in one book. Thank you for watching this video. Shalom.